Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. It's another episode of Leeds Utd Latest with myself, Stephen Brown, and joining me as ever to discuss the Whites, it is Jason Booker. Smash your likes on the video, get your comments in, subscribe to the channel. We're going to have a little chinwag about Leeds United as the international break approaches, and it gives us a chance to pause and reflect on the season so far and discuss a couple of the little bits as well. But Jay, another international break, they come thick and fast at this time of the year. Have you filled your diary for the weekend now there's no Leeds United game?
Well, I had done, hadn't I? I'd booked to go to Lincoln at Bradford in the Lincoln end with our Chris.
Course. Yeah,
and then they got kiboshed by the international break as well. So no Bradford this weekend either. So and no Formula One, which is a gutter for me. There's a bit of boxing Saturday night, so I'll probably entertain myself with that. That'd be my go-to. But I don't know. I was actually thinking of seeing where Avenue were at and maybe taking myself down. But so to answer your question, no, I've not. And I mean, my missus is like, "Oh, maybe we can do something." like,
What?
Yeah. So what?
I didn't hear that. What? Yeah.
No, I haven't.
No. Michael, morning. Stephen, Jason, morning, mate. Thanks for joining us on our new kind of Thursday, Friday morning slot at 11 o'clock. Like we say, international break, time to pause and reflect. Leeds United, 15th place, 8 points in the bank. And Jason, kind of, in terms of a start to the season, I don't think we could have hoped for much better. I think there's been so many promising signs and moments with what we've seen. I'm kind of happily surprised by how well we've adapted to life in the Premier League. And I think I'll be honest with you, I'd look back at some of these games and think a bit of bad luck, deflections, and a weird own goal has cost us a few more points. But how are you feeling after 7 games?
I think you're spot on. I mean, I don't like saying really that we've been unlucky and it's bad luck because it makes it kind of like you're making excuses, and some of it is just the Premier League being the Premier League. I think that especially of the Bournemouth late goal. I mean, that weekend, I think there was late goals in every single game. It was mental. There were so many late goals. And that is the difference of a Premier League level. They've got a bench to call on that can change a game. And, in that game, as an example, it was the bench that actually changed them the game. He comes off the bench and gets them a point. So some of it's bad luck, some of it's naivety. Again, the build-up to the Bournemouth goal, Altanaka and the mistake he makes, I purely put that down to naivety rather than quality. Just clip it down the wing and we're out of danger. So we'll probably see that game through. Yet it gives away a foul stupidly, needlessly, and we end up conceding. So, and then you look at the 2 deflections against Spurs. Were they bad luck? Were they poor defending? I think there's a bit of both. I think you can argue cases for both. And then the Fulham, obviously, the moment at the end of that game, which is just bad luck, right? So I'm just choosing to see the season in its entirety. The performance levels outside of the Arsenal game, I think, have been excellent. They've been so much higher than what I thought they would be. I'm not sure what points total I thought we would be on come 7 games. No. But I am shocked and surprised by the level of competitiveness of which we've shown. I thought we would look far more out of his depth in certain games than what we have. Outside of Arsenal, we've not looked out of his depth at all. We've looked very competitive in every single Premier League game, every single one of them, Spurs and Newcastle included. I thought we'd see more 3-0 losses, maybe in both of them games, and you get where I'm coming from. Maybe even Fulham away, maybe that'd have been more tricky than what it was. So it's set me up for the rest of the season thinking and feeling if we continue this way, and not only continue this way, but this is where we're at after 7 games, the trajectory should be actually that we're going to continue to improve. We'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah. I've got to say that's where I'm at with it, because it's almost like all the talk coming into the Premier League is promoted teams are terrible. They're up against it. Everyone's favourite, Bucky's favourites to go straight back down, obviously based on what's happened the previous 2 seasons. And I was worried. I remember, the anxiety going into the Everton game about, God, what if we just get absolutely humped by teams? Like you say, 3-0 losses here and 3-0 losses there. And then the Arsenal game happens and it kind of, it stokes that fear a little bit. You think, oh, we could get run through. But everything we've seen since, including that Everton game as well, has kind of reassured me. And it's almost like having to learn this league as well. But I also think a lot of credit has to go to how we're setting up, how Farke has set up, and the plan from the recruitment side.
Yeah.
They've done their homework. They said, right, we've got to take the physicality through the roof, because we were one of the smallest sides in the Championship. It was all about that technical advantage. And we knew we were going to have to improve the physicality, and that's exactly what they've done. And it's paying off so far. And hopefully, like you say, it continues. And, you start getting, players back from injury on the wings, you get a few more options there. Hopefully, it's going to improve.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you can only believe that it's going to improve. I mean, look at how we've changed from game week 3 to game week 7. The way that we were struggling to create chances against Newcastle, then against Fulham, and it's then we've evolved and adapted again. Okafor coming into the side has really, I think, opened up as potential avenues of what we can do going forward. And we do look to be a little bit more flexible and a little bit more willing to take risks in certain moments of the games, rather than being just completely pragmatic. Like, I liked the performance against Newcastle, but we were very, very, very risk averse that day. Yeah. We set up almost to make sure that we didn't lose, and I get it, I do understand that, but we do need to make sure that we're picking up enough points to stay up at the same time. So you've got to be careful that you're not then doing that in games where you should see the game out or win the game. If we did that against Brentford at home as an example, and we don't take 3 points, come the end of the season, they start catching up with you. So it's a fine balance, but I agree with you. I think as the cohesion between the team grows and keeps on getting better, I think we'll see a better performance and continuing better performance. The biggest kind of X factor, if you like, that we've seen through this season so far is the transition for Daniel Farke from a Championship to a Premier League manager. For me, he has been the one that stepped up the most. Right from word go, we've changed the formation, we've changed the system. It's nothing like it was last season. Tactically within that style, it's different as well. We still gain elements of control of the ball against some teams that are better than us, which is really evident of a tactical plan and structure. I think most of the times within the games, he's got the subs right and he's got the game management right. You could argue a couple of moments here and there, but I think overall he's done well. Overall, I think he's maximising what he's got at his disposal. Look at some of the teams that are in and around us. They've all got X-factor players. We still don't have that. I mean, Okafor, you could argue maybe will become that, but he's not been that as of yet, and we're still able to get 8 points from 7 against 3 Champions League sides. 3 out of them Champions League sides. So 3 out of them 7, a Champions League side. So it's been a good start, mate. Really good start.
Yeah, I think it's a great point about Farke. It's funny because I was listening to the radio, and obviously Russell Martin's been sacked by Rangers, and it's been an absolute nightmare from start to finish for Martin. And you look what Martin did with Southampton in the Premier League, no adaptation at all. Yeah. And it's almost, it's amazing how managers are in fashion and how they get these opportunities. You could never have imagined Rangers looking at Farke, kind of as a Championship manager, even though I think, and I don't know if you think this might be happening now, I think pragmatism and managers who it's not all about we've just got to retain the possession. It feels like we're getting back to, okay, we're going to see what we can do in this game. We're going to be flexible. We're going to be, we're going to have a structure, but we're going to be open to different things within that structure. I think that's what Farke's getting absolutely bang on. He's not come up and done what Russell Martin did or Vincent Kompany yet. I know Kompany's done well at Bayern, but Russell Martin at Rangers, it's been a complete washout.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think come the end of the season, if it continues like this and Leeds stay up, I think people will look and observe Daniel Farke very, very differently. And I think you'll start seeing a manager that'll start gaining that interest. I do think his reputation is unfairly skewed because of the Norwich time.
It's ridiculous. I mean, Jason, how ridiculous is this? You go up with Norwich, you have no budget. You've won the Championship, 3 times. I mean, you've got over 100 points in the Championship 3 times, or above 90 points 3 times. And it's like, yeah, but you got Norwich relegated, so, So
that's it. Everything goes out the window.
It's bonkers when you look at it like that.
He finished 10th with Mönchengladbach. He left Krasnodar because of the Russia situation, and that's pretty much his managerial career outside of then lower level stuff. He built himself up to the Norwich position. I mean, he's so overachieved with Norwich. So overachieved. People are like, oh yeah, but he had him with Buendia. Well, one player don't make a double championship winning team, does it? He just doesn't. I mean, he had a couple of other good players within there, but if you go and have a look at what Aarons has done since leaving, not Gibson, the centre back who were at Everton.
Oh, Godfrey.
Yeah, Ben Godfrey, struggled since. The other players from within that team, Timo Pukki was never a Premier League striker, and he turned him into one. The players that they had through the middle, Todd Cantwell went on and struggled elsewhere. Like, that team was pretty full of ordinary, average Championship players, and he turned them into Premier League players. And some of them went on to get moves and struggled there as well. So I think he deserves so much more credit than me and you were prepared to give him 18 months ago as well. It's we're not impervious to some criticism with this as well. Like, we've both openly said a few times we were prepared to see him go after the playoff final.
I'll be completely honest, I did have the bias against him in my head for a long time. So I tried to be, especially when you come on these things, try and be impartial and judge what's in front of you. But there was always a bias in the back of my head, especially after we lost in the playoffs, going, it's just not right, or there's something just not right about, he's not up to it, or just some voice in the back of my head was going, no, but Farke's just not going to be, he's not quite right. And, obviously you get to this summer and then it's, do you try and get an upgrade and all this kind of thing. And I feel like, just judging on what he's achieved and what he's done and looking at how we are now, I mean, that's completely gone for me. I just think, he's done a marvellous job.
I actually think, Browney, like, it takes a real special character and personality to manage Leeds United. Marcelo Bielsa were capable of it. Howard Wilkinson were capable of it. George Graham had that kind of character as well, even though he wasn't particularly liked. David O'Leary to a point, but we all know that he was very egotistical. But you look at the big personas that have come through the doors and been successful. You then go and have a look at the ones that haven't been successful as well. Terry Venable, Peter Reid. And I look at more recently as Neil Warnock. Neil Warnock was kind of, when he was given the job at Leeds, everybody just expected, right, okay, Leeds are going to win the division. They're going to be up there. They're going to get promoted. And he stunk the place out. It was terrible. He couldn't manage up. He couldn't manage the club. And he ended up getting sacked, just like the rest of them. Yeah. The only manager at a Championship level that's really ever succeeded before Farke was Marcelo Bielsa. And he was so special. He has got such that X factor. He just got it. And Daniel Farke, arguably, I'm not saying that, this is true or fact, but you go and have a look. Daniel Farke has arguably had a more difficult Leeds United to manage than Marcelo Bielsa did, because the expectations are higher for Daniel Farke, because we've been to the Premier League under Bielsa and come back down. The parachute payments and all the rest of it were, and Marcelo Bielsa had no shadow to hide under. He was the saviour. Daniel Farke has had to live with Marcelo Bielsa expectations too for 2 years. He's kind of had that kind of going on and on and on at him, me included, not being always happy with the way that the football was going and how entertaining it was and all the rest of it. He's handled all of that. He's handled all of the players leaving. For 2 years under Bielsa, who did he lose? He decided that he wanted to sell Kamaru. He decided that he wanted to sell Pontus Jansson, who were arguably two of our better players within that 11. Daniel Farke didn't have that. At the end of season 1, when he had to rebuild, he had Jorginho Rutter, Chris Somerville, Archie Gray just taken from him. He had no choice. He had to go and replace them with not even like for likes, players that could just fill the gap, and then he's coached them on and managed them into being better players. Yeah. So he deserves so much credit, Browney, so much.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's probably an uncomfortable truth. That as well, the fact that when Bielsa came in, the expectations were so low. And look, he's a coaching genius, and what he did with bang average Championship players stands the test of time. We know that. But I think you're right. I think what Farke has had to take on and deal with, it's real testament to how well he's handled this. And, long may it continue. If he's proving those doubters wrong, I'm all for it.
I can already imagine the clip that you're going to put together, and then the TikTok fan base going,
Farke better than Bielsa.
This moron says that Farke's better than Bielsa because people don't listen. Like,
yeah.
people don't listen to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, Bielsa for me is the greatest thing that's ever happened to our football club in my lifetime. He is, because for most of my lifetime, I was 13, 14 when Leeds were relegated from the Premier League. I remember the Champions League. I remember the O'Leary days, but it's minimal. You know what I mean? I watch it. I love watching it back, and the Viduka, the Kewells, the Boyers, the Smiths, and not all of that. I love watching it. But ultimately, really, it wasn't my generation. My first season ticket was the season we came down, Derby at home in the opening day of the season, with the likes of Steve Stone on the bench and Steve Guppy, and we were putting a team together, Michael Ricketts, Julian Joachim up front. Like, I remember, Paul Butler, the captain, Sean Gregan signing. I remember all that, and that's my generation. So from then onwards, from Kevin Blackwell to Daniel Farker, that is really my era.
Yeah.
And Marcelo Bielsa, I mean, this isn't a Marcelo Bielsa stream, but I could talk all day about him. I could. I love the guy. I loved everything he stood for. I loved the way that he made me feel about the football club. The injection of passion that he put back into the way that I felt about Leeds United is all down to Marcelo. The imagination that I got created back to the players, the love that I had for some of them players within that team, it was just so special. And that's before I start talking about the football. The way that the football actually looked on the pitch, I've never been so entertained. But it's once in a lifetime stuff.
Yeah.
It genuinely is. It is Don Revie of the 60s to Marcelo Bielsa of the 2020s. It is so rare. So, for Farker to then deal with that shadow and overcome it and actually surpass him. I've just seen Michael's comment there about the 100 points. He beat every metric. He blasted every metric out of the park. And some people will say, well, he had a better team than Marcelo. He probably did. But it wasn't that much better. It was still a championship side, and we also had harder competition. When Marcelo got promoted, we finished X amount of points in front of a really poor West Brom side who finished second, tripped over the line. And then the teams that were in the playoffs were nowhere near as competitive as Southampton, Leicester, Ipswich, and then the teams that we had to deal with last season. Nowhere near. So, yeah, deserves every credit, mate. Every credit.
Did you hear the rumour that England might be playing Uruguay in a pre-World Cup friendly?
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, it's rumoured.
Marcelo.
We'll have to get ourselves to that, I think, aren't we? We're going to have to find a way to get to that one, I think, if that happens.
Try and get there. Try and get as close to the bench as possible. Wear him a Leeds shirt.
Hire me, please, Marcelo. Please give me a job. I'll do anything. I'll do bags, whatever it is.
I'm a Uruguay.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Just kind of, just before we set up the stream, actually, I was just kind of intrigued just to kind of see in our most recent Premier League ventures where we were looking after 7 games and see if there's anything we can read into it. Obviously, it's different seasons, different players and everything, but I just thought it'd be quite interesting to look at. So I've got it here. It's chopping our heads off, unfortunately. But if we look through it, so obviously the 9th place finish at the bottom there, 2021 season. After 7 games, we were sitting on a healthy 10 points. Obviously, we know how that season finished as well in 9th place, so it was a really strong start then. Interestingly, though, the second Bielsa season, so the season where we stayed up by the skin of our teeth last day against Brentford, after 7 games we were sat on 6 points. We'd only won 1 game. I remember it, the Watford game at home, Llorente scoring. And then in the season we actually got relegated, we were sat on 11 points after 7 games. We're in 8th place. But you have to take into mind that we got 9 of those points in the first 3 games and then didn't win a game for God knows how long after that.
We actually started the season really well, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we all thought, we might be doing something special, but it all kind of went there. But I mean, it's just interesting, Jason, isn't it? I mean, you look at especially that kind of 21-22 season, only 6 points after 7 games, and I think at that point we thought it was going to be a struggle. And it was, but we managed to stay up. And remarkably, that season we actually got relegated. I mean, 11 points in the first 7 games. I mean, we'd have, bitten your hand off for that this season, wouldn't we?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it goes to show as well that it's only a barometer of what's going to happen during the season. We arguably could have been on 11 points this season.
Yeah.
The first season we stayed up. with finishing 9th, we were on 10. I think we're probably in and around that kind of. And it's tricky to kind of also compare because you don't know how the division looked on them seasons as well in comparison to how it's going to look at the end of this. But it is still a good barometer to know. I think we're in and around where we need to be. We're in and around where we need to be. I think we're far more competitive than that final season, obviously. You know, just the way that the games are going. Again, like I think back to that season that we went down. If you remember, we were 2-0 up against Southampton away, and we ended up drawing 2-2.
That wasn't it? Rodrigo double, and
you don't see that performance in this side at the minute. Like when we were 3-1 up against Wolves, as an example, in my opinion, there was no way we were going to not win that game. It felt like a championship game. So I think, again, just trying to make the comparisons between the two, or the 4 seasons even, I think it's a perfectly acceptable start to the season. Out of the first 7 games, so we've won 2 games is okay. It is okay.
Yeah, agree. Going to have a look at some of your comments here. Skip's thrown one in. You can tell it's an international break. If you had to change one rule or introduce a new rule, what would it be? Anything kind of burning there, Jason, that you think, God, I would love to see that introduced into football?
I'd love to remove VAR completely.
Yeah.
If I'm honest. And I know that's quite a big landscape one. That's probably not what he's looking for. In my opinion, I think offsides should be, if any part of the body is onside, they are onside. I've always kind of felt like that about it because I think it would encourage more goals. I think you'd see more goals. Now, you could argue, well, defences would sit a little bit deeper, but then eventually you'd get to the point where you'd be so negative and defensive that you just end up conceding more goals. So I think you would have to push the high line, which would then catch more people offside, or you just defend the player. You know what I mean? But it'd see more goal scoring opportunities if it was Arsene Wenger kind of tried to introduce this and it kind of got coshed. But I don't like he's got a fingernail offside, so it's offside. I think if a striker is close enough that any part of his body is being left onside, I think he should really be playing on the side of the attacks. I would rather see games that are 6-5 and 4-3, you know, on a regular basis, because we're seeing more gilt-edged goal-scoring opportunities than a 1-0 or a 0-0. So I suppose if I'm being pushed on an answer, I'd probably say that. I do like the argument and the avenue of potentially looking at giving managers challenges to decisions, but I just don't know how it'd look. You know what I mean?
I'd say that's what I was going to kind of think, and because it's fresh in the mind. What I didn't like on Saturday against Spurs is, and I wonder, I don't know what rule it would be, or if maybe the 4th official needs more impact. Something is, I felt like the ref was getting refed by Spurs. There was a kind of moment, and it's been referenced by a few people, that Paulinho kind of makes a gesture to the referee at one point, as if to say, you're being, you know, you're letting
it went like that, didn't it?
Yeah, and it's like it seemed to change then, and suddenly Spurs were getting everything, and it's
human out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I just think, you know, I mean, when it's that type of thing, you know, could a 4th official or someone, you know, impartial just get in their ear and just be like, I need to just sort this out. I know it's difficult because you're taking away more of their power, but I don't know, the standard is so on the floor with refereeing.
I'll give you another one as well. This is slightly different, but I'd like to see injury time completely kiboshed and the clock be in the stadium stopped and started by somebody at VAR. So whoever's at the So the second the ball goes out for a throw in, it stops. The second it comes back and it starts again. The second it goes out for a corner, it stops. The second it's back in play again, it starts. Because there's too much.
There is.
It's changed over the last 2 or 3 years so much, and we've seen the statistics, especially at championship level, where the game was in play for 37 minutes of the 90, and it's like, what are we watching? Like, we all pay to either go to the game or watch it on TV or whatever. It's meant to be an entertainment spectacle, and for most of it, it's out of play.
I agree with that completely, because, you know, what I'm getting sick of is how long it's taking for free kicks and stuff now. It's like, geez, there was one free kick Leeds had against Wolves, and it was just the referee was prancing about, I'm like, what are you doing? Can we get on with it? It was literally about 3 or 4 minutes of the game waiting for a free kick to be taken. You're like, what are you doing?
At the end of the second half, though, then, Brad, I mean, last season, do you remember there were games at the beginning of the season where there were like 12 minutes added time?
Yeah, and they just stopped it, didn't they? They bottled it, didn't they? They absolutely bottled it.
They did. And then you see in this season, I mean, I think it was the Spurs game, there were 5 minutes. And there'd been like, I don't know, let's say 7 stoppages for substitutes. Straight away, that 7 stoppages is at least 2 or 3 minutes, at least. Then they've scored. Then all the stoppages, for the ball being out of play, like there were way more than 5 minutes. But you're right, they've just bottled it.
Yeah, so Skip's got an interesting one here. Skip's saying, personally, I'd like to go back to 3 subs rule per game unless head injury. I mean, the argument with 5 subs is that it's going to benefit the better teams because they've got all these fantastic subs to bring on. Where do you stand on it? 5 subs? Do you think it's too many, or?
I do tend to agree with Skip on this one because I think it unnecessarily unevens the playing field even more than it's already unfair. Don't get me wrong, there's always going to be a pecking order in football between those at the top and those at the further down the pyramid, and the working to get to that level out there. That's how a sporting industry works. But then you unnecessarily just make it even harder to bridge that gap by being able to bring on 4 or 5 subs. There is the rule that it can be only made over 3 stoppages, which I think is fine. And I do think there's the other side of the coin that says sometimes too many changes can actually cause you problems.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I suppose I'm then contradicting myself a little bit, but it's an interesting one. I would prefer it being the way that it was, personally.
Yeah. Moving on then, Fergal raises an interesting point. It was actually something I was going to cover because I did see an article. Thanks for your comment, Fergal. Off topic, what do you think of Alan Smith's comments wanting to be able to go back to Ellen Road without any hassle? Say that he never wanted to go to Man United, but Leeds were desperate for the cash. Yes, now I saw this article and it was in 442, and it was interesting, and it's stuff we know. I think kind of any Leeds fan, who watched in that era and saw what happened, the initial kind of reaction when Alan Smith left to Man United is, it's Cantona-esque, it's a traitor, it's this, that, and the other. Obviously, what's come out since is obviously the financial implosion, and Man United were the only ones who were offering the cash, basically. And Alan Smith must have known that it was essentially torching his kind of reputation, or certainly risking everything to go there in terms of how Leeds fans viewed him. Now, Alan Smith was, the diamond at that time. And, we've talked before, if you look at I think he only scored about 30 odd goals for Leeds or something over 100 appearances. It wasn't blistering stuff, but he embodied, he personified pressing, tackling, and he just had that kind of persona. Absolutely loved Alan Smith. And it was one of those things that, just soured everything for me so much, and it's probably why I drifted. I always followed Leeds, watched games, went to games when I could, but until Bielsa came in, that real hard core passion wasn't there. And it's interesting. I think he made a tough decision, a difficult decision, and I think enough time has gone where I think he should be able to come back, and I think he should be. Because we see all the boys from that group. You see Martin come up, and Paul Robin. All these guys, they can waltz into Ellen Road whenever they want, apart from Mr. Kuehl. But I think Smith, it would be nice. I would like you. I was always praying that he would make a return at some point. We got linked to him at various times. I was just desperate for it to happen, and it couldn't quite happen. But I would love it. He didn't go to the centenary celebrations. When they had all the players from the past. I don't think he either didn't feel like he could or whatever, which I think was a bit of a shame. But look, the club he ended up for, it was always going to make it a little bit tricky. But I would like to see that buried now. I think there's been enough time, and I think someone who, not to kind of overblow it, but it's almost heroic what he did in the sense of the risk that he took to help Leeds. There were plenty of players that couldn't wait to get out of the door and stuff Leeds, as Mr. Kuehl again, he was the opposite. He would happily have, forget Leeds getting a penny for him if it meant him getting out. Whereas Smith, he torched his reputation and got the club some much needed cash at the time.
It's a bit like a martyr, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Sacrifice
himself, and the noise always was that he gave up his signing on fee at Manchester United, which were in the millions, to give to Leeds United. I mean, not many players would have done that. Not many people would do that.
Yeah.
He always has it thrown at him that he said on Soccer and that he'd never signed for them.
Yeah,
that were a bit of naivety probably on his part, because football works like that from time to time, and things change very, very quickly. He got to play under arguably the greatest manager that there ever has been. Leeds fans won't want to wear that, but it's just the reality, unfortunately. He got to win several things. He got to win, play in the Champions League. He made more England caps. It was probably really unfortunate that he had the injury that he had when he had it, because he were re-establishing himself as a really good midfielder at the time. Who knows where his career could have gone on for if he hadn't have had that injury. He still had a pretty good career after that as well at Newcastle, and then went on and played in the Football League as well. So I know on really good authority that he was close to signing back for Leeds a couple of times, and it ended up not happening because of the feeling, and the managers either decided at the time that it weren't worth the risk. I get it. I totally get it. I mean, at the time, I remember how vociferous and vocal the fan base was, and how angry the fan base was. I remember I was in an away day the day that he broke his leg. I remember it's crystal clear as today. Like we were at an away end. I can't remember what away end it was, but I remember it filtering through into the crowd, and Alan Smith has broke his leg.
Yeah.
And the rest of the chant. Went around. I sang it myself. I get it, and it's one of them things. It's tribalism with football, but you're absolutely right. As time's gone on, and you start actually deep in it and looking into it and thinking and feeling it, who knows? Maybe the club didn't even exist today if it weren't for Alan Smith. Who knows? Like, if we didn't get that 10 million, I think it was, including his signing on fee, who knows where this football club would be?
Yeah.
Maybe it'd have MK Dons it, Wimbledon it, and we'd have restarted down at the bottom. Who knows? What I mean? So I think bygones are bygones, mate. I think he's still a Leeds fan at heart. I think it'll hurt him every day, if I'm honest, because clearly a very passionate lad, very passionate about his football club. He always represented us extremely well, and I would love to see it buried. I don't think it ever will be, because I think there's just too many egotistical Leeds fans that if he were to walk back onto the pitch for whatever reason, they wouldn't be able to compute it and brain it like we are right now.
It's not a Leeds thing to do, is it?
No, it's not. It's probably not a football thing to do, to be honest. I can imagine a Newcastle ex-player that signed for Sunderland it being the same, or an Everton-Liverpool situation being the same. So, I don't think it's just a Leeds thing, but it feels like that to us, I suppose. But yeah, I do feel for him as time's gone on. I've made my peace. I'd have loved to have seen him come back in a Leeds shirt later in his career, playing that centre midfield role. Like when we really need, I think it was the season that we got promoted back to the Championship from League One.
Yeah, MK Dons by then or something. Or...
I think he went to MK Dons after that. I think he was still at Newcastle, because Newcastle had got promoted from the Championship at one point to the Premier League, I think he ended up coming back down. I can't remember the exact timeline, but there were a time where it made a lot of sense.
Yeah,
and it was a very valid signing, and it just didn't happen. It'd been I think it'd have been such, and that would have probably buried the hatchet.
Yeah,
fans would have got over it again if they'd have seen him in a Leeds shirt again.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, moving back to present day, wanted to pull this up from Michael earlier on. I am concerned about what I'm hearing from players not getting enough game time like Tanaka and Bijol, along with rumours like Peru may be sold in January window if he continues to be a bit part. I was going to bring this up actually because, yes, there's been reports doing the rounds, but typical kind of headline report articles, player unhappy, and then when you read it, it's basically the player saying, yes, I would love to play more, but I understand what the situation is. Yeah. Tanaka and Bijol both coming out. I mean, Tanaka said, he has to improve. He's saying that Bijol, he has to be patient. He knows that as well. I personally, love the fact we've got two real quality players chomping at the bit on the sides, because we never had that last time. We had nothing. We had nothing below that 11. And if there's somebody there waiting to get their chance and, you know, proving themselves in training every time and doing it, I think that helps us. Now, the question is, and I think particularly for Bijou or for me, is it time to get him in the starting 11?
You're loading this for me again, aren't you? You're going to get me in trouble.
I'm ready to clip this up, mate.
We'll have our mate, when you clip me up later, I'll be all over TikTok again. Hopefully people are going to listen instead of just making up their version of what I say.
Reading the headline.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you completely in that it's fantastic to have options. We definitely didn't have that last time. I would argue so far, does Tanaka deserve to start? Bear in mind, he's been injured for 2 games as well, right? But has he deserved to start? He started against Everton. He was I think he then got injured and then lost his place. Since then, I think the midfield 3 has been really strong, really, really good as a trifecta. You know, what they kind of bring as a collective together has been really good. Physically, we are far more dominating with them 3 in there than if you take Tanaka, put Tanaka in for Longstaff or Stack. Let's just say now Ampadu's not getting dropped. Ampadu is going to start every game, and rightly so. He has to be on the pitch. So it's going to be one of the other 2. So I would argue right now Danny Farke's got it spot on. And then how do you find him that much more game time in 7 games when he's also then been injured for 2 or 3 of them? And he started the first one. So I would argue that Tanaka's probably played as much as he probably should have done. Made the mention about the moment against Bournemouth. You know, he comes on. He actually does his chances harm because of what he did, in my opinion. And then, you know, he came on against Spurs and had a much better impact. But the game state is a bit different. You know, Tottenham is sitting back. He's got more space in that area of the pitch. He's definitely more dynamic than Longstaff and Stack. So he can look a little bit better at that time of the game. But if he'd have started that game, we'd have probably been more goals behind.
Well, that's what. Sorry to interrupt, but that's where, because that Everton lineup for me, the midfield was, I thought that was our best midfield when Tanaka was in it instead of Longstaff. But Longstaff has come in and just, I mean, for me, he's undroppable. You know, you know, the whole package.
I completely agree. I think Longstaff has been excellent. I think he's been our best midfielder since he really fired into the team. I can't remember the first game that he started. It might have been Fulham away, but he's been excellent. And Newcastle, he's continued to grow and grow and grow. And you can just see that experience. You can see that leadership in that area of the pitch. There's no kind of fluff with him. There's no panic. You know, you don't make 200 Premier League appearances if you're a mug. Stack, I've got to be careful what I say with this, but I think he arguably could be our best player. I've said that from game week 1. He's got all the physical attributes that he needs to be a top player. He could well be one of the ones that we look to sell on at some point that looks even better in a better team. But having seen him over the 7 games, if you watch the 7 games and listen to what I'm saying, you will see bozo moments. This isn't me making it up. Watch the game, and they don't always result in a goal scoring opportunity for the opponent. They don't always result in a goal for the opponent. But the moments which are clutch in over a season, they can count massively. The bozo moment that he showed against Bournemouth at home, when he made the foul on the edge of the box for no reason whatsoever, that's a bozo moment. And he ends up conceding as a goal. We end up drawing the game 2-2. We could win that game without that goal going in. Now, I know there's things that happen afterwards, the draft excluded, the wall jumping, Caldalo, get all that. But he still started with that tackle. He did another one. Was it against Spurs? Or was it against Fulham? He did another one against Spurs. Exactly the same. Exactly the same. Didn't result in a goal, thankfully. Bozo moment. Okay, so don't be upset because I say it as it is. Because it's the reality. I'm not saying that he's a bad player. He's a great player. And I do think he could well be our best player. But he's capable of that. And this is why Leeds have been able to sign him. This is why he's not gone up further up the ladder. And we're seeing it now. You know, when we signed him, I said to you, it's a top signing that. He's one of them stretch targets that I'm surprised we've been able to get hold of. As time's gone on, I've had to readjust my take on that because of what we've seen, the evidence that's been produced in front of us. We saw him at Wolves away as well. And again, thankfully, went on to win that game. You go back and watch the Wolves, the first half especially, gives the ball away a lot in needless situations. Players give the ball away all the time. That's fine. I understand that that's going to happen, especially when you're going forward. But needless positions in needless ways. Go and watch it.
Well, they were doing it against Bournemouth, where he kept heading it in space. And you're like, "What are you doing, mate? What are you doing?"
You tell me, mate.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. My frustration with him has been growing because of these bozo moments. And how many times do I do it in the WhatsApp group, Jay, when we're watching Leeds and I'm so triggered by something stupid that he's done that I bang out a message going, why is that doing? Listen, I agree with you as well. I think his ceiling is very high. I think he was one of the standout signings. I think his physicality, his numbers, you look at chance creation, fantastic, love it. The performance at Wolves in terms of the goal and the assist, great. And I think, and I'm hoping, the consistency will go up and up and up and up and up. But there are bozo moments there, unfortunately. And like you say, if he was perfect, then we wouldn't have signed him. But I would like to see him get a handle on these things now, because it's a few games now where we're seeing this sloppiness.
It's coachable.
Yeah. Well, he's adjusting to a new league. He's adjusting to a league better than the Bundesliga. So it's faster. He probably doesn't have as much time and space. So, but all that sharpens. All that can sharpen up and get better.
Again, people will hear it and be like, "Oh, he's saying Stack shouldn't play." Dean, I'm not saying that. Yeah, no. Not saying that. And I really, really like Anton Stack. I think he's a top player. Yeah. But there's still criticisms within it. Yeah, like, I know people are going to jump on the Pascal thing. I don't mind Pascal as a top-end championship centre-back. But I have spent 3 years saying he gets caught chasing the ball. He gets caught watching. Mentally switches off. I've said these things consistently for 3 years. And when we look vulnerable, it's because of Pascal Struijk.
Yeah.
Joe Rodon's a much better centre-back, right? But Joe Rodon still makes mistakes. All footballers make mistakes. I'm not saying that. But there's a trend to the way that Pascal makes mistakes. Yeah. There's a trend to the things that he consistently does incorrectly that then ends up meaning that we concede chances and ultimately concede goals. They don't always end up in goals, which is why people have fired back at me. Well, he's part of the best defence in the league. Yeah. Great. I'm glad about that. But that's more than... It's not as a consequence of him not making mistakes. He's still making them mistakes. And we will continue to see this season goals coming as a result of the things that Pascal does wrong on a consistent basis, the things that he does as a trend. Michael made the comment there about Biol coming as a marquee signing. Biol would have 100% have started the first game of the season had he have not been suspended. I feel almost certain of that, and I think Pascal would have been the one to make way. Some would argue that it might be for Rodon because they're both right-footed and Pascal's left-footed. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Joe Rodon has got everything that a Premier League centre-back needs. Everything. He's not perfect. He's far from perfect. And again, he would have then succeeded at Spurs if he was much better than what we're at now. But the way that he's progressed, his game management, his understanding, his pace, he's a very, very quick centre-back. He's good in the air defensively, better defensively than he's attacking, even though that's improving. I think he's added a ball-playing element to his game now as well. I would argue, again, some will kick off at this, I think he's a better distributor of the ball than Pascal Struijk is. I think Pascal does some really nice-looking passes from time to time, but most of them are either side to side or they go out of play or they go too long. Joe Rodon punches it into that midfield, into the attacking space, and usually it hits there, it gets there. Punches it into Jadon Bogle, and usually it gets there. So, yeah, I don't even think they're comparable, the two of them. I think Joe Rodon's...
that decision-making element as well, and I always put Ampadu and Rodon as a pair, really, because, we signed them at the same time, and both Welsh, etc. And I think they've both got this, the decision-making is such a high level, and Rodon stepping up to the Premier League. I think there probably was, you probably we probably all wondered what's that going to translate like Rodon in the Premier League. We don't know, and for me, it's just been it's kind of harsh on a defender because when they're good, it's kind of seamless to the point where they don't really get a mention.
Yeah,
it's a bit unfair, really, because he's been absolutely top. Just before we disappear, because we're going to have to go off in a couple of minutes, but Noah Okafor is not in the Swiss squad. He's not going to be. He's not on an international break. A little bit interesting because a Swiss newspaper has come out and said that apparently there's a bit of an issue with the coach. Apparently, he's got a bad mood, questionable behaviour, and poor training performances as Noah Okafor. And look, hey, I'm not disappointed he's not playing in this international break because an injury record, if he can be primed and ready for Leeds. I mean, also it mentions that he's the only Swiss player to score more than one goal in any of the top 5 leagues as well. So it does seem a bit of a mad one that they've not got him in there. But hey, the less games they have to play and risk at international level, I'm fine with it.
I mean, I can imagine him being a little bit of a nuisance. I don't know why. He just can sometimes get a certain flavour from a persona, carries himself, but some of that comes in then them being able to do unbelievable things on the pitch. You know what I mean? Like Cantona was like that. You mentioned him earlier. Like Eric Cantona must have been an absolute menace to manage. Yet it was an absolute genius on the pitch. But you can see it; just pours out of him, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, there'll be several others, and hopefully Daniel Farker is capable of managing him and managing him in the right way. It seems like he is at the minute. But yeah, for him going away with the international squad, that's great for us. The more players that can be kept back, I wish Biol would be back with the club as well, because I really would like him to get more time with the squad, and then hopefully he makes that place. But hopefully he has a really good international break with Slovenia, and then comes in and stakes his place. Like I just want to clarify on Pascal as well in terms of the starting situation. He's been excellent this season.
Yeah.
He's been brilliant. And outside of I think maybe 2 games, I would say he deserves to be starting games.
Yeah.
After the weekend, if ever you're going to find a time to get your marquee centre back signing in, this is it. And if Biol doesn't perform, Pascal comes back in. Absolutely fair and fine. Because I do think I think the pair of them together have looked really, really good. So I don't think it should just be one way. This ain't just a Pascal bashing, because I do think he's had a good start to the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Right. Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you to everyone who commented and got involved. Please make sure you've smashed the like button, get subscribed to the channel. Myself and Jay, we will be back next week for a proper look ahead to an absolutely huge game against Burnley. It's going to be fantastic. But hopefully, fingers crossed, no injuries, no dramas from the international break. Enjoy your weekend, guys. I've been Stephen Brown. With me has been Jason Booker. Jason, thank you, mate.
Thank you, mate.
And we will see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.